Welcome to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Para Cave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Para Cave podcast. And this is the interview podcast, which I will split up in two episodes. But the first episode and the entire episode is with a former Cronulla Sharks player. Also played at the North Sydney Bears, but also did a little bit of coaching at the Parramatta Eels. That's where I probably knew him more of from there. I also knew him from these playing days as well. Also represented the New South Wales Blues in State of Origin. Also played for the St George Dragons as well, and that is Mr. Alan Wilson. Now, this was a chat that I recorded at St Mary's Leagues Club with Alan. It was a really enjoyable chat, so good. It was a pretty long chat, which I will split up into two parts, but basically we go through his career in rugby league, how he found rugby league, his first grade debut, some great Jack Gibson stories in there. Jack was the coach at Cronulla when Alan was there. Also playing State of Origin. Now, it's not every day you get to talk to a State of Origin player. And Alan has played for New South Wales. Also, a bit of his coaching career at the Parramatta Eels, as I mentioned before, as well, working under Brian Smith. He spent 7 years there at Parramatta between 1998 and 2004. Some famous games that we talk about of his time at Parramatta. That prelim final, which I don't usually like to talk about, to be honest, as for obvious reasons, but I did anyway because I really like to know about those games. And also the 2001 grand final as well. Also discovering a young Nathan Hindmarsh as well. And one cracking story that I will say is in this episode, so you'll probably be in part 2 of the episode, but Alan worked at the NRL and also developed the That's My Team NRL campaign with the Hoodoo Gurus. So that was a cracker of a story there. So I think that one will be in episode number 2, but it could be in episode 1. Stay tuned. But yeah, that is a cracking story. We have heard in the past people talk about the Simply the Best campaign, but this one is right up there. Some of that music is actually used still today on Instagram. I've used it, I know myself, on a few posts that I've done, a few stories I've done on Instagram, and that campaign music is still used. The old That's My Team. Anyway, you don't want to hear me talking. You want to hear the interview with Alan Wilson. So, as Hindy says,
get a beer, coffee, whatever you want.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy. And let's get straight into it. And today on the podcast, a very special podcast, I guess, because it is a outside broadcast. I'm outside the Para Cave doing this one. I'm actually at St Mary's Leagues Club doing it. And my very special guest played 109 games of first grade for 3 clubs, but mostly at the Cronulla Sharks. He's well known for the Cronulla Sharks playing there. Played at the St George Dragons and North Sydney Bears as well. Represented the mighty New South Wales Blues in State of Origin, played in England as well. And there's 2 things that I want to talk to him about today is his time at the Parramatta Eels, the club that I love, but also being the mastermind and brains behind the That's My Team campaign, NRL campaign a few years ago. Welcome to the Para Cave podcast, Mr. Alan Wilson.
Thank you very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Now, what was life like growing up for yourself back in the day? What sort of sports did you get into and how was it?
I was just a typical young Australian boy. I had a younger brother, Craig, so there was always someone to play against. My childhood was, we were always on the move. I actually was born in the Sutherland Shire, and at the age of about 6, my dad bought a pub in Young. So I went down we lived in Young, and the hotel was in the main street, and we lived in the main street. So we didn't have a backyard effectively. So we used to play a lot of knee footy.
Oh, yes.
Lounge room footy.
Yes.
Caused a bit of damage, but anyway. So the Young Cherry Pickers was my first ever team. My dad sold that pub after 2 years. We moved back to Sydney for about 11 months. So I played a season with Penshurst RSL in the St. George district. We then moved out to Wellington near Dubbo. So I was out there and played for Wellington for a few years. And then we sold that and moved to Armidale.
Okay.
And so again, lived in the main street of Armidale. Played football, junior football for a club called O'Connor, which was a school there. 15 years of age, there wasn't enough teams to have a competition. So I was about to go and play with the under-16s. My dad said to me, he said, son, I'd rather you have a year off.
Okay.
Just do something different. Like go and, do something. And he really wanted me to play soccer, just to learn the different spatial awareness, but also left and right foot. And he was keen to me to play soccer. But I actually took up basketball and absolutely loved it. We had a bit of success, ended up at a state championship, and was going down that path, and then sold that pub and we moved back to Sydney. So I had to change again. So apart from the 7 schools that I went to, I played for about 5 football clubs, and ended up in Sydney at the De La Salle Junior Footy Club.
Oh, yes.
Which is, pretty well known for producing a few Sharks. That's where I ended up. And I was playing there 16s, 17s and 19s. I never played junior rep footy ever.
Okay. Yeah.
When I moved back to the Shire, obviously we moved back in at the age groups of the SG Ball and it was Harold Matthews was older then. Harold Matthews and SG Ball, and then Jersey Flag was the next one up. I didn't get asked to try out for any of those teams. So they used to send out 60 letters asking you to come and trial for the team. I didn't get one of the 60 letters. So I didn't think.
So what were you thinking then? You were thinking.
I just turned up and played footy.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking, as soon as the last game of footy was over, you'd register with cricket.
Yep.
And I'd go and play cricket, So I didn't get a letter. I don't know if you want to get down this path so early, but
no, that's all right.
I was playing. I got sent out to St. Greg's Campbelltown to play in a combined Catholic colleges or something schoolboy rep footy competition or rep trials, and played about 4 games of footy. And at the end of the day, I was just packing up my bag, and there was a couple of gentlemen from the Sharks there, and one was Ron Massey, who was Jack Gibbo's right-hand man.
Yep.
He came over to me and he said, "Oh, Alan, Ron Massey, congratulations, mate, great day." He said, "You'll go right here." And I said, "Sorry." I said, "I'm going home."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, aren't you playing the next?" Like they just announced the possibles versus probable.
Okay, yeah.
I said, "Mate," so Ron, I didn't make it.
Yeah.
I'm going home. Nice to meet you. See you later, and left.
Yeah,
and
okay.
Oh, okay.
Bit shocked.
Yeah, well, he was.
For
me, it was just another game of footy. And let's be honest, probably a day out of school.
Okay, yeah.
So it was a reward.
Yeah.
And then let's go a couple of months later, I ran into a guy named Mick Suter, who was Jack Gibson's strength and conditioning in most of his jobs. And he introduced, "Hi, Mick, how are you?" And he said, "Alan, I know you are. I've seen you play footy." He said, "Are you trialling for the Sharks?" And I said, "No, Mick, no, I have no intention." And he said, "Oh, I think you should." And I said, "Well, Mick, if I didn't get a invitation to try out for SG Ball, why would I go and try out for a grade?"
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, well, there's an open trial next Wednesday. I think you should try." And I went, "No, thank you very much. It's very nice of you, and goodbye, Mr. Suter." And I moved on. And lo and behold, 48 hours later, there was a letter in my letterbox. "Dear Mr. Wilson, would you please come and trial with the Sharks next Wednesday night at Shark Park?" And I went down and I turned up and it was a cold, wet, blowy night,
Like Shark Park
horrendous
is.
southerly
Yep.
at Shark Park, as a lot of people expect sometimes. And it was open trial, so people had come from all over the country, and I was 18, and I'm sitting on the bench next to 29-year-olds,
Okay.
big guys who'd come out of gyms. I weighed 81 kilos, and these blokes were like 110. So I was very intimidated, and I sat there. The game went for 80 minutes. It wasn't until the 70th minute that they say, hey, get up, you're on. I went, okay. And for the rest of the night, I was thinking, this has just been another waste of time, like coming here, sitting here for 70 minutes, I'm freezing, whatever. They said, get on. I said, all right, where am I? And they said, go and play 5'8". And I said, I'm just letting you know, I've never played 5'8" before. But they said, no, just get out there. I went out there. I got the ball once. And that happened to be, I was throwing the ball on fifth play, and you couldn't kick into the wind. We were running against the wind. You could not kick into it. So I just put up a midfield bomb, which I was sort of good at.
Yeah.
I put up a midfield bomb, and I just had this uncanny knack of the moment the guy caught the ball, I would just hit him with everything I had. Now, 81 kilos wasn't a lot to hit you with, but
I
did it. And I did that and got taken off. And I went off and I sat back down on the bench and I said to the bloke next to me, I said, mate, there was nothing wrong with that tackle. That wasn't high. Did you think that was high? He said, no, mate, there was nothing wrong with it. I went, oh, well, and that was my night. That's all I did. And so at the end of the night, they call us all into the sheds and they all sit down and they say, all right, these gentlemen here, we're going to invite you back on Saturday to trial in a 5th grade trial with the Sharks. And lo and behold, I got read out. So that was my introduction to the Sharks as my junior
because
career.
of the tackle, you think?
Well, I don't know. It probably helped that Mick Suter and Ron Massey had seen me, were fortunate enough to see me play at the schoolboys game or whatever. Ironically, for, let's say, 3 years later, I was playing Parramatta at Shark Park and I did the same kick and Paul Taylor caught it. And I hit him with absolutely everything I had. I still got that one on video.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was, I just grew a leg. They just put me in, do the job. If you did the job, come back, whatever. So that was my introduction to the Sharks. I had no intention of going anywhere. I didn't have a manager. No one else was looking at me. So if it hadn't have been for probably Jack Gibson and his style of play and the character that he liked to have in his organisation, I probably would have been missed by rugby league.
Well, your first grade debut was in 1986 for the Sharks against the Tigers at one of the many names of Shark Park. It was Ronson Field back then.
Ronson Field, yep.
What do you remember about playing the likes of Elias, Sirenen, Maguire, Kevin Hardwick? As you just mentioned, you were at that trial, 81 kilos, and they're bigger blokes as well.
Massive. Yeah. I was as nervous. I was probably nervous for every game for the first 3 years of my career. I really don't remember much about it. I'm going to say that Michael Wicks might have been playing front row for us on that day. And he physically dominated their pack, so it was easy to play behind.
Okay,
right? He was incredible that day. My first ever foray into first grade, we actually played a trial game against the Roosters at the Sydney Sports Ground, the old sports ground in that year. So I played 80 minutes of under 23s, and they said, mate, we'd like you to sit by for reserve grade.
Yep.
So I sat by and I played the 40-minute second half of second grade. And then they said, mate, we'd like you to sit by for first grade.
Yeah, okay.
I played the last 16 minutes of first grade.
Yeah.
So that used to happen in that day.
That's
was
right.
common. Like the kids now don't understand that. But
no.
But I was used to that anyway, because growing up in the bush, Wellington would go out to Narromine, you'd play the under-12s, and then the 14s needed someone, and then the 16s, so you'd just jump on.
And you love footy as well, so you just want to play.
Yeah, so Yeah, so I was that was my foray into it. Then a couple of weeks later, later in that year, I get to play first grade. And wow, when you've been watching these guys on TV and idolising them for so long, you got to get over it pretty quick. But
Yeah.
like Mike Tyson says, like everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. So once you get to make that first run and that first tackle, it's sort of everything else the nerves sort of go and you just rip in.
It's funny that you mentioned that quote from Mike Tyson because I interviewed Lee Addison, the rugby league coach, the other day, and he mentioned that same quote. So it obviously does stick with a lot of, I guess, coaches.
Well, it's so simplistic.
It is.
It's you're going to have the world's biggest plan and then just one big piece of adversity when you got to reevaluate. So, it's a pretty great, wise quote.
It is. It certainly is. Well, the next year you cement a first grade spot playing 19 games, but you're also a regular goal kicker as well. Was that something that was in your game?
No. So we're now this 87. So I was never a goal kicker during my junior footy.
Okay.
I might have been the fourth string kicker, or if we were winning 40-0, everyone gets a turn, but that type of thing. I was a toe poker because we did use leather balls, and I idolised Steve Rogers and Mick Cronin as goal kickers.
Yep.
So I was never a goal kicker. I remember we were having a bad run with kicking. Our statistics weren't that good, and I used to get to train an hour early. It was just standard practice for me, and back in the day, you just grab the balls, go out there, and just kick goals. You didn't practice your passing left or right. You just kick goals. What you did, straight out of the junior,
fun stuff,
straight out of the junior footy part. Right? And one day, I was just landing them from everywhere, and they just said, "Look, hey, you can kick this week." And I went, "Oh, what?" Yeah. So that's how I actually acquired that job.
Yeah. Okay.
I never pretended to be a goal kicker. I didn't think I was a good one. I'm actually surprised now when someone shows me the stats to say how many I kicked, because I must have missed as many as I kicked, I think, but I don't know. I was always, I was always apprehensive or nervous about kicking. Would have loved a gun kicker to come in and take the job off me, but I just had to do it. So it helped. It also probably helped me get a start in first grade. As an by 87, I'd sort of done a bit of work in the gym, and I'd worked myself up to 83 kilos. So I was a big kid. And so at 83 kilos, you're probably not going to win your position, as a back rower in first grade. But so being a goal kicker probably helped me. And then add to that, the versatility that I sort of presented for Jack Gibson. So from under sevens to under 17s, I played halfback.
Okay. Yeah.
Was never a forward. That's what I played.
Yeah.
And then in under 19s, I just asked the coach one day, I said, "Mate, can I go at lock?" Because I love to tackle.
Yeah.
And I still think it's one of the strengths of the game is rugby league, in my opinion, is a collision sport. It's not a contact sport. It's a collision sport. If you don't like collision, it's probably not your game.
Yeah.
And I loved that part of it. So I asked if I could play lock, and I just started tackling. So the fact that Jack could move me around, and I just loved to tackle, so I didn't need the ball. I just wanted to tackle anyway. So that's probably the kicking probably added to the fact that, might as well give him a go, and kicked a few to start.
Was there a memorable goal kick in your career that you kicked?
Not really. The one that most people bring up to me, there's 2 days. We play in 89. We ended up playing in a playoff game against the Broncos on a Tuesday night at Parramatta Stadium.
Yep.
And again, we thrashed the Broncos that night, and I landed a few. I think I scored a try in the right corner, kicked the goal. I did score a try at Henson Park one afternoon on the left I played left wing that day, and I scored a try and kicked the goal from the sideline. It was 1 up, 1 down, because everyone said, the 1 up, 1 down thing.
Yeah.
The post was so short.
That's right.
I got that goal. But as Andrew Voss, my good mate Andrew Voss, likes to remind me on a regular basis, I did kick 1 from 8 at Shark Park one day. I don't know what year it was, but in those days we were going through a horrendous wet weather patch, and back in those days, we used to have, on wet weather days, they used an alternative football. So the decision would be made by the referee half an hour out from the game, which footballs we were going to use. There was the leather, beautiful, big sweet spot on the end, toe-poking specialty ball. And there was this yellow synthetic. It weighed half the weight. It was pointy, and I could not kick it. For love nor money, I just couldn't kick them. And on that day, I kicked 1 from 8. So there's not one goal that I distinctly remember. It's the 1 from 8. It's the one that gets brought up the most.
Yeah, no, I remember those synthetic yellow balls playing junior footy myself, and I think I remember that year as well, because most of our games were called off that year because all the fields were closed because it was just...
I remember driving to Penrith Park. We were playing on the Saturday. I was playing, so this would have been 86, I reckon. We were playing on the Saturday. I can't be sure, to be honest. Playing on the Saturday, and the Nepean River, they were all flooding. Everything was flooding, and I ended up in a service station, and I had 2 other players with me who were playing the game. And I had to pull into this service station. Didn't have a mobile phone. It's 1986. And I had to ask the service station if I could use his phone, and I had to ring Penrith Leagues Club to get a message for someone to say, "This is Alan Wilson. I can't get to the ground, like the river, whatever."
Because the rivers are flooded.
And I just with hands up in the air, and we just had to turn around and go home. Yeah. They actually postponed the game till the next day, so we went home and came back the next day. But that was a pretty unique experience as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. You mentioned Jack Gibson just before there. What was it like being coached by Jack Gibson?
For me, it was essential to being a footy player, I think. As I said, like other coaches who had a different style of footy might have been, in your face, aggressive, confrontationalist style of footy, probably weren't going to go near me.
Okay.
Jack was just the opposite. Jack, he just put a lot of trust in you. He said very little, but when he spoke,
everyone listened.
Everyone listened. So similar to a Dean Pay, who I coached at Parra when I went to Parra, he was very much similar. Jack said very little, but what he just said is it was just on point. And I'll give you one example. One night I had to ring him up to explain to him that one of our players had got into a bit of trouble, and I got voted to go and ring Jack at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
And I said, "Jack, it's Boy Wilson here," as he called me Boy Wilson. I said, "Boy Wilson here." He said, "What are you doing, Wilson?" I said, "Jack, I'm just down at the club. I'm just letting you know such and such got into a bit of a fight here, and they're going to take him away and deal with him. So I just thought I'd better ring and let you know." He said, "Yeah, no worries, Wilson." He said, "Now what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I was going to stay and have a beer if that's all right, Jack." And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, you have a good time." And I said, "Yeah, okay, thank you, Jack." He said, "Wilson?" And I said, "Yes, Jack." He said, "Don't have a great time. Just have a good time. See ya. Bye." And then that was it. Yeah, that's what he did.
That's a great story.
He would come into a halftime speech, and he'd stand up there and he'd stand around and look at you and he'd say, "I think you could play a lot better than that." And he'd walk out.
Yeah.
And you just went, wow. So then the captain goes, "Well, he's right." Okay. So he didn't need to stand there and rant and rave. So he was, let's say, a master psychologist.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And he got in your head a different way. Everyone has a different way, but at the end of the day, they all have to be authentic. You can't be someone you're not. And Jack never pretended to be anyone he wasn't, and everyone respected that.
Yeah, I think I remember interviewing a few of the Parramatta players from that first grand final, and I think he did the same sort of thing. He came in at half time and said, "It's up to you guys."
Yeah.
And then practically walked out.
I've spoken to Sterlo, and Sterlo thinks that on one grand final he didn't even come in.
Okay, yeah.
He doesn't even recall him coming into for the half time.
Yeah.
Because he knew, right?
Yeah.
And they still won it.
That's right. That's right. Just about coaches, where do you think Jack sits in the coaching realm? Is he the super coach? I mean, many people say Wayne Bennett is the super coach.
Well, if you look at Jack, or if you look at Wayne Bennett, he was mentored by Jack Gibson. He idolised Jack, studied Jack, was mentored by Jack. And then the progression there is Craig Bellamy worked under
Wayne
Bennett, goes to Melbourne, and and now you look at all the Sydney coaches that have worked under Bellamy, as in Maguire and O'Brien, and there's a lot of them, and Riles.
Yeah.
So it just sort of grows. I think he was very good, and I think Wayne's outstanding. Like, to still be doing what he's doing, and if you hear anyone talk or who has been in the presence of Wayne at a halftime or around his club, it's like Jack Gibson Mark II,
Yeah.
But again, Wayne has his own spin on it because he's authentic. Wayne's not going to be anyone that is not authentic, right? So he's got to be at the top. Bennett's got to be there. Bellamy's got to be there. And the other one that I have a high esteem for is also Tim Sheens.
Okay.
He went to Penrith and he did a remarkable job, went to Canberra, did a remarkable job. So, and again, the coaches that were sort of under or have grown under their tutelages, they're probably the gun coaches, I think.
Yeah, no, certainly some great names there, great coaches there for sure. In 1988, Cronulla were minor premiers, unfortunately losing to Balmain in the prelim. Do you think that was the best opportunity to win Cronulla's first competition?
The old opportunity missed, eh? Probably. Well, no, it wasn't.
Okay.
Because they played in the grand final in 73 and 78.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
So they were their best chances because they actually made it.
Yeah,
so
true.
They were a better chance than us because we didn't make it.
Yeah.
We did have a hell of a run to get to the playoffs. I think we won 12 games in a row there at one stretch. We played Canterbury in our first semi-final, and they belted us pillar to post. Now you got to remember, if you go through the Sharks team of that day, and it's just off the top of my head, Docking, Coleman, Eddinghausen McGaw, can't remember the other winger. We had young Barry Russell. There was myself, Michael Porter.
Yep.
I would assume that was the first semi-final appearance for a lot of those guys. So it was a large amount of us. Michael Speechley.
Yep.
Would have been. He might have played in a semi with Newtown, but a large core of us were making our semi-final debuts. So there's the old adage, you got to lose one to win one, or we'd never sort of been in that hype before. I hadn't anyway, and I think a lot of us hadn't. So Canterbury just absolutely beat us up. And consequently, when we get to the next week, I got a feeling it was minimum probably 6 players had pain injections to play,
wow.
right? We were just busted. Barry Russell was gone. Like Canterbury beaten up the week before. His shoulder was gone. Speech was as tough as they come, and he'd have needles. Gavin had more needles, Gavin Miller, than anyone I ever saw in the game. We toughed out to get on the field, and we only went down 9-2, but we were in the game. There was an opportunity there. We probably could have got a try, and there was also a really poor decision, in my opinion, made as we were attacking the line. Went against me, actually, for they said I knocked it on, but you
Okay.
can see the video, like
Yeah.
Benny ripped it out. But that's how it goes, right? So, yeah, we were in the battle. I was proud of what we did, but we probably needed, another year and
Okay.
mental scarring and growing and
Yep.
to go back. And the following year, we finished fifth, equal fifth,
Okay.
which
yeah.
meant we had to have a playoff
Yeah.
so we played Sunday, finished equal fifth, had a playoff against the Broncos on Tuesday night. We won that to play Canberra on Saturday.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was effectively the 3 games in 6 days, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was a big thing to overcome. So we didn't get there.
And the players wonder about turnaround days these days.
Yeah.
To play 3 games in 6 days. That's amazing.
I mean, you knew that was the rule.
Yeah.
It was just, that's the way it turned out. But Sunday to Tuesday that was hard.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the next year, 1989, obviously a special year for yourself as you make State of Origin football for the first time, representing the New South Wales Blues and getting reunited with Coach Jack Gibson.
Yeah.
What was that moment like when you were named to represent New South Wales?
Well, it was very interesting. It's another long story, mate. I don't want to bore you about it.
No.
So
I'm here to listen.
back in those days, again, we didn't have mobile phones. And effectively, they read the team out on the radio
Yep.
at 6:00 on Sunday night. They do the news and they'd say, all right, here is the New South Wales team for Sunday. So maybe it was 7:00 news. I don't know. Because the game's finished, the selectors go back, they pick their squad and whatever. So all I remember is this. So, being from Cronulla, North Cronulla Hotel used to have a balcony with 500 people on it. And Sunday night it used to absolutely crank. And it was my regular thing. I would go down there and catch up with my surfy mates and the rugby union mates and all my school mates, whatever. And that was my hangout on a Sunday night. So I would play the game, go to the Leagues Club, duck off to Northies for a few hours and then come back to the Leagues Club. That was my routine. I was standing in my usual position at North Cronulla Hotel, looking over these 500 people, probably all singing some song, and I could see my uncle walking in. Now, my uncle was about 65, so he was about 30 years older than anyone else in the hotel.
Okay.
And he was 6'3" and he stood out.
Yeah.
So I'm going, oh, what's he doing? What's Uncle Bruce doing here? And then my immediate reaction was like, because my dad was going, Dad, Mum, something. So my mum was chronic asthmatic and had a few health problems.
So you were thinking the worst.
I'm thinking he's coming and I've got to go somewhere and whatever. I'm thinking the worst. I'm just thinking it's one of them too, right? That's what I'm thinking. And so I sort of meet him halfway and in this crowd of people. And I said, Uncle Bruce, what are you doing here? He said, mate, can I talk to you outside? And I went, oh, here we go.
Yeah.
So we go outside, we go down the stairs. He said, listen, your mum's over there. She's got something to tell you. She needs to talk to you. I went, okay, so it's Dad. All right. Anyway, I walk over there and she's sitting in the car and she said, darling, you've just been named in the State of Origin team. I went, what? She said, yeah, look, it's on the radio. Like, yeah. So she was emotional. I get emotional.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
She's just passed. So.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
So she says, whatever. So it was a great moment. And she said, so what do you want to do? Do you want me to take you down to the Leagues Club? And I said, no, I'm in the middle of the shower. I've got to go back. So I hugs and kisses, everything. I walk back inside and I don't know, walk inside or I floated. And I just remember walking back to my position near the bar and for the next 2 hours, I I don't know if I spoke to anyone. I just stood there. I was dumbfounded.
Yeah.
And never mentioned it. No one mentioned it to me.
Okay.
And I never mentioned it to anyone else. And I just stood there till 10 o'clock, till the pub shut. And then I got a lift down to Cronulla East Club in a taxi. And I walked in the foyer and Barry Russell's wife, Jodie, was there. And obviously everyone at the Leafs Club knew because E.T. was in it and whatever. So, so that's what I remember about it. There was no special phone call or moment at home or, you see the NFL in the draft, they're all sitting around the house with their family and stuff. Mate, I was at North Cronulla Hotel enjoying a cold schooner and, did that for a couple of hours. Yeah.
No, that's an awesome story. And probably one of the best I've heard. Was anyone looking at you thinking, what's going on with Alan? Like he's been dumb, he's quiet and.
Yeah, I don't know. I just.
What did they think afterwards when they knew that you were in the team?
Well, because I went back to the Leafs Club, I was back with all the footy fans, so they were ecstatic about it. It was the week after, where all the mates from the pub found out, and so it was days gone by, and so the home phone was ringing off the nut, off the off the wall, and just took it. It was it's pretty surreal, to be honest.
Because that your debut game was at the Sydney Football Stadium, and no doubt people will be asking you for tickets to get there to watch it. But it was a pretty famous night. Unfortunately, New South Wales lost the game. Queensland, they won the game, but they lost 5 players, and I think they ended up playing the game short of players as well. Arthur Beetson described that night as the greatest game that Wally Lewis has ever played. He scored that famous try where I think he brushed off Gary Jack, at the end there. I don't think New South Wales was ever going to win that night, to be honest.
I don't know. For me, I'd never been around those players, and at that was hype at another level, State of Origin.
Yeah.
So if you remember, 1985, I'm playing under 19s at Caringbah Oval for De La Salle. 1987, I'm winning Rookie of the Year. In 1989, I'm playing State of Origin. Like, I'm just going, where this is happening
so fast.
I thought it was quick,
Yeah.
It mightn't have happened quick when you consider it's a 4-year span, but for someone who was never touted to, for anything, in regards to achieving stuff in footy, it just fell on my lap. That's what it felt like. So for me, like going into camp with those guys, so this is the other thing about Jack then. Jack had a different approach. He wasn't all about the big boozy camps and going into bonding sessions and stuff.
Okay,
so we never really had a solid, like, big 4-day bender, like teams after that had sort of gone on to do, or prior to that.
Yeah.
That wasn't his style, and so it might have helped me a lot if we had done that. To get to know them all. But I was still a bit intimidated because I'm just, mate, these guys they were
the best of the best.
Yeah, and it was insane that, probably I probably needed to just accept that, hey, listen, you're not that bad a player. You're up to this standard. Go and do it. So I came off the bench. I played 2 games and I came off the bench both. I think I might have got 8 minutes in one. I don't know how long in the other. But, it's an achievement. I couldn't tell you where my jersey is. I don't know. And it certainly is an honour, and it's a privilege to, when people like you recognise it, talk about it.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Game 3 was at Lane Park, and how was the bus ride past the Caxton Street Hotel? Because they would have done those in those days.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
what was that like?
Unreal. It's fantastic. I remember that camp. I actually, that was the first time I was ever diagnosed with sciatica. 2 days before the game, I don't know what it was, but anyway, I suffered it for the next 5 years. But yeah, the Caxton Hotel, That was fantastic. I know why they can't do it anymore.
I
They
wish
would
they
literally
could.
tip the bus over. No, mate, people are lunatics now. And if they got the army in and just lined the streets and just let them do it.
Yeah.
And hand out balloons to throw at the bus or something. Yeah, it does.
Not water bombs.
Not cans of beer. That's the trouble.
Yeah.
It's not cans of beer because the buses, and that's why they stopped doing it. It was the bus company was paying $40,000 to fix his bus.
Well, you wouldn't want to do that these days, though, because beer would be too expensive.
Oh, correct. Correct. I found that out last night. But yeah, that was a great experience, that Caxton thing. And that was the Old Lang part.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was, I'd actually only ever played there. I didn't play there many times, to be honest. Yeah, so it was pretty cool.
So sitting on the bench and not starting, and you got that crowd behind you, was that harder to sit on the bench?
Yeah, it's a good point. You can expend a lot of nervous energy sitting there, like waiting and waiting and waiting. Similar to my trial at Cronulla.
Yeah.
Like just sitting there, just,
Wait.
So the difference is with that game, you go through 2 days of hype in the press and this and that, and then you get to the ground, you do the warm up and you warm up and then you sit there for, a long period of time. You need to, they're more technically minded now and they send you for a warm up every 8 minutes. But, you can expend a lot of mental energy. And then I think that game there, I think the result was, sort of sealed, but when I went on, so it can be flattening as well.
Okay, yeah. Definitely. What was your favourite Origin memory on the field or off it?
Oh, very good question. I don't think I've been asked that one before. Well, obviously, being announced, like picked in the team and my mum turning up to tell me.
Yeah.
No one else better to hear it from.
Yeah.
I got to say, we did a visit to the Sydney Children's Hospital, and I ended up meeting this young kid in a hallway on a wheelchair and just took a knee and had a chat with him for a while, and you just sort of got to understand, that you can help others, like just giving back because they look up to you just because I'm wearing this. If I was wearing civilian clothes, probably wouldn't mean anything to him. But because I was wearing that badge and that tracksuit, he had time for me, and so you try and give back. So that was one. I still have the pleasure of going to the New South Wales Rugby League True Blues reunion every year.
Yes, yeah.
So it took me a few years to go.
Okay.
Yeah, because you don't feel worthy, like 2 games, and these guys that have
2 more games than me.
Yeah, I know. I sort of learned to overcome that, and people talked me out of that. And I've got a few mates we still sort of think the same, but once you get there and you understand, mate, there's so many guys that only play 2-3 games, like just, embrace it. So I do.
Look at Michael Butner. I think he only played 1.
Correct.
And Aaron Raper didn't even get on the field.
Correct. Well, I was a trainer that year for Tommy in that game.
Okay.
Yeah. That was in Melbourne.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was a trainer in that year. So I've embraced it now, and I'm 57 and finally said, mate, you weren't a bad player. Like, because you see stuff on TV and you go, oh, not a bad player after all,
Yeah.
I always think I had room for improvement, but,
I think everyone does, I think.
Yeah.
They think they can do something a little bit better. But then obviously being in Origin camp, that must have given you confidence to go back to Cronulla but just being around those Origin players and then going back into clubland.
Well, some might say that I never reached the same heights as I did prior to Origin after going back there. I went back. I had sciatica, as I mentioned. You're actually a bit flat when you go back.
Okay.
And so then I later understood when remember the Queenslanders, and Mal was saying he wanted you to go back and play good, like, because you sort of went back thinking, oh, I've done my job this week. Well, you got to go back and pay respect to your teammates who got you there, and so you got to go back and give your all. So, I went back, and I really, you're right in saying, like, I felt part of the the top squad, like part of the thing, and because the fans embrace you and you sign a lot of stuff, and so you sort of feel comfortable when you go back.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunately, though, after that, Cronulla don't re-sign you for 1992, and then you move to the North Sydney Bears.
Yep.
You were disappointed about that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It wasn't my decision. It was theirs. I didn't have a manager, so I didn't know how to go about where am I going to go. Like, I was a bit dumbfounded. I can tell you one story, which I don't think I've shared with a lot of people. I got about 4 phone calls and inquiries, because it was on the home phone.
Okay, yep.
Which was encouraging. And one day I picked up the phone. Phone rang. I picked it up. I said, "Hello," and is that Alan? I said, "Yeah." He said, "Hey, Alan, this is Tim Sheens." And I just said, "F off," and hung up. Because you
think it was one of your mates.
I just knew it was one of them. I go, anyway, that's what I did. And phone rings again. And he said, "Alan, now don't hang up."
It's Tim Sheens.
"This is Tim Sheens." He said, "Write this down. Write this phone number down. 07, I don't know what the postcode, 07, da, 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 da. You call me back. That's a Canberra number." So I hung up, rang it back, and, "Hello, Alan." "Yes." And I said, "Tim, I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
I was so sorry.
Yeah.
He said, "Alan, don't worry. It happens more than you think.
Yeah.
It's not the first time it's ever happened. Don't worry, mate.
Not my first radio.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that went south as well after that. They just moved on, but I would have loved to have gone there.
Yeah.
Could have had me for nothing. Had you known. But, so I ended up at North, which is great. They threw a line out because they had my brother anyway.
That's right. Yeah.
So it was a bit of a reunion there. Craig had never played at the Sharks. So we went over to Norths, and my first season there again, like I'm talking about my sciatica and my back, hurt my back, and I was out for minimum 3-4 months.
Okay.
I went to more physios than I went to training.
Yeah.
And I was just about we were tossing up whether I have they were going to inject me with paw, this treatment. They said, "Oh, this is experimental paw juice or something," or alternatively, like, you might have to have a titanium disc put in there or something. And I just kept going to physio. It really wasn't working. And I'm a big believer in deep tissue massage, like thorough sports massage. And I used to I just kept doing that like twice a week. I was twice a week getting it, and it came good by the end of the year. So I came good with about I don't know, maybe 6 or 8 weeks to go, and so I drop into the reserve grade team there and going all right. Probably 10 games or something. And we're going all right. We're on a run. We've got a good team, and we end up going all the way to the grand final and winning it.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
you sort of, not your best season, but hey, what an exciting way to finish it.
Yeah.
Made something of it, which was great. So 93, I was there again, and again played reserve grade all of the year, which is fine. And just have the same theory. Well, listen, you're going to play it, you might as well win it. So we did.
That's right.
We won it again. So, like, to go to a club and 2 years and not play first grade, which is
Tough.
you get over the disappointment when you win the reserve grade grand final, because back in those days it was a big thing. You played before first grade.
That's right.
You played on the same day and the same stage, and it was great.
And sometimes even with a lot of first graders in reserve grade as well.
I won a reserve grade grand final with Peter Jackson.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so there were some great players played for us. Played against Andrew Johns.
Okay.
He was a kid
On the
then.
cusp.
He was on the up. Newtown. So the first grand final I won, I played against Balmain. Guys like David Brooks, they all played. Newcastle the next year. And then I went back to Cronulla in 94. So North offered me, North said they couldn't sign me because they'd signed Jason Taylor, actually.
Okay.
So there was no room for me money-wise. So I went back to Cronulla on next to nothing, which is what I always earned there anyway. Just playing reserve grade. And again, boys, you can play reserve grade, you might as well win it because it makes it better, eases the pain.
That's it, for sure.
And, so we did.
Yeah.
So I ended up with 3 in a row, which is pretty cool.
Three-peat.
Yeah. And just to do it with a different bunch of boys again, that Cronulla, we won both under 21s and reserve grade that year.
Okay.
And that was the start of a massive pathway for Cronulla, like the Matt Rogers and the Robbie Kearnses and all these kids were coming through and they were so good.
Yeah.
And there was one who was going to be something special, ended up at Parramatta, Adam Ritson.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he played. I think he played in both grand finals that day.
Okay.
He played,
wow.
and we put him on in the second one as well. He was going to play for Australia. So again, great way to finish a year and achieve something.
Yeah, definitely. Adam Ritson, great fella. I had him on the podcast a while back now, and as you said, would have played for Australia. It's sort of a bit of I guess you could say, a bittersweet moment, isn't it? Because if it wasn't for that tackle that he was involved in,
correct,
the brain tumor might not have been found.
Correct.
So it's a bit of a bittersweet moment.
Tremendous.
Isn't it? Ends the career.
Tremendous guy.
Yeah.
Just a great sense of humour. Like he was going to play. He was unbelievable. 16 years of age, like
to play first grade. Yeah, amazing.
He was like a mini Arthur Beetson.
That's right.
He was so good.
That's right. And you just mentioned Peter Jackson just before. What sort of a guy was Peter Jackson?
He was wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a wild child, but very funny.
Yeah.
Always in every club, you have to have. There's guys who, they do their job on Sunday, game day. And there's guys whose value to the club Monday to Saturday it's countless. Like it's immeasurable, right? He's one of them guys. Like there's times like you might have had a terrible loss and everything, you're facing adversity. And someone like him could just come in and flick a switch and lighten the room up.
Pick everyone up.
Like, that was him.
Yeah.
I got to say at Para, Mick Vella was a bit the same.
Yeah.
Like, he just was happy to be the village idiot.
Yeah, well, I've also heard he was the pest as well.
Yeah, correct. But mate, we loved his company.
Yeah,
and made him an invaluable teammate and a great asset to the club. But he did go on to play some great footy, like representative footy. But there's guys whose value was just that much more from Monday to Saturday. And Jacko was like that.
Yeah.
He was out there.
And one hell of a player as well. I guess this year at Parramatta, I guess that's Josh Addo-Carr, who's the character that
prankster.
Well, yeah, prankster and the guy that gets that mood going and wish him all the best for this year. When you did go back to Cronulla for the second time, you actually played a game against your brother. Did you get much time against him?
I can't tell you. I wouldn't know.
Would you have liked to have got much time against him?
Oh, mate, he was actually a good player, my brother. Real good player. Good ball handler. Big, a lot bigger than I. He was from the age of, he probably overtook me when he was 13.
Yeah, okay.
He was a very good player. He had terrible problems with his knees. Would have played a lot more footy, senior, good footy. Had his knees not sort of done out with him. I don't even know who won the game, to be honest.
I'd have to go back and have a look at that, and I'll let you know that for sure. After playing, you played over in England for a couple of years, and then you came back. And 1998 and 2004, you spent 7 years as Brian Smith's assistant coach at Parramatta. Now, some would say, and I say it was a pretty successful period for the club despite no premiership. What was it like working with Brian, and where does Brian rate in the terms of the coaching realm?
Well, again, people define success differently. Now, as a head coach, if you're at a club for 10 years and you won the club championship 9 times, the club's got to sit back and say, well, that's successful. Unfortunately, everything's put into the big game.
In the premierships, yeah.
But if you're a contender every year, I think you're successful. My journey to coaching, again, I was playing and never, ever once thought I'll go into coaching when this is done. Hadn't.
Okay. Yeah.
Never thought of it.
Just fell into it.
Never thought of it. Right. So at the end of 93, when I was leaving North, when they said we can't afford to pay you to play, but would you be interested in joining our coaching staff? Now, I was only 25 probably.
Okay. Yeah.
They said, would you be interested in joining our coaching staff? And I went, I don't know. And so I went and spoke to a few people, and they said, mate, don't retire. Too young. So I went off to England. I said, no, thank you very much. When I was coming back from England, I just happened to ring the Bears. I thought, what am I going to do now?
Okay.
And I thought, I'll ring the Bears and just say, is there anything going available, having made me an offer 3 years prior? And I rang him, I spoke to him, and I just said, listen, tell him, listen, I just want to let you know if there's any opportunity, any space there, I'm retiring. I've had enough. I'm going to, well, come and see us when you get back. And I arrived back in Australia day before Melbourne Cup. I didn't want to go over there on a Melbourne Cup day, so I went the next day. And they just sat me down at the table and said, listen, we want to put you on. We're going to make a job for you. Can you start in January, first week of January? I said, yeah, absolutely. I said, look, I'm doing nothing till then. Do you mind if I come to training every day and just learn anyway? I'm doing nothing. I might as well come and just be around it. And they just went, yeah, you're right. Start Monday. So I just started and had a year. They loved it. I was just a trainer. I used to run the water for all 3 grades.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was just sort of learning, the psychological stuff, the game tactics and stuff, and just looking and observing stats and numbers, right? Which I really got into stats.
All right.
Now I just love it, right?
Yeah.
That was sort of, you would read reports and look at numbers, and I sort of went, I sort of enjoy this. I was going to, they offered me a second year, and I just said, listen, I'll think about it over the weekend. I was driving home and my phone rang. My mobile phone, but we got mobile phone. And the guy says, Al. I said, yeah. He said, this is Brian Smith. Hey, Brian, how are you, mate? And he said, yeah. He said, mate. He said, what are you doing next year? And I said, mate, you wouldn't believe it. I've just been offered another year at North. And he said, would you be interested in coming out here?
Alan, how you going, mate? Are you a Parramatta podcast listener?
I am, bro. It's a great podcast. Everyone tune in.
Go Parramatta.
to another episode of the Parramatta Podcast. See you next time.